Okay, so this is going to sound really weird because you're looking at a picture on the screen of a big old fancy car, and I don't, is that a Ferrari? I don't even know what kind of car it is. But are we going to talk about cars? Not really, but it has to do with accounting. Hold on one second. Sorry. How does it have to do with accounting? Well, so in the beginning of this class, this is kind of the way this class works, and this is why I have this picture here as kind of an analogy. Okay. Um, when you're learning accounting in this class, what's going to happen is you're going to learn everything from the big car first, okay? And we're going to call the big car the three financial statements: the income statement, the retained earnings statement, and the balance sheet. And like a car, if you look at a car, right, you'll say like, oh, okay, so those are the wheels, and those are the tires, and that's the mirror on the outside, and those are the headlights, right? You could see the pieces of the car. And if you opened up the hood, there would be more stuff inside the car that makes the car go, right? So you would see things like the carburetor, and you'd see things like alternator, right? So what's going to happen is with the financial statements, like with a car, I am going to show you like, oh, okay, the wheel goes here, the tire goes here, the headlights go here, the mirrors go here. This is the way you put it together. And when you open the hood, okay, the carburetor goes here and the alternator goes here. So I'm going to be showing you where to put the pieces, right? And the pieces that you're going to be doing are going to be things, they're going to be accounts. So they're going to be things like the cash account. They're going to be things like accounts receivable. They're going to be things like retained earnings. And I'm going to be telling you where to put those. Now, within each one of those are more details. Like, for instance, if you were to open up the hood of a car and you were to open up the carburetor, you would see all kinds of parts inside the carburetor, right? What makes up the carburetor? But what's happening is that we are starting with just the big car. We're not getting into all the details of what makes up all the individual parts. We're starting with the great big car. So the financial statements are the great big car. And you will be tempted along the way to ask, well, what's the carburetor? Where does that come from? Or, in other words, like with accounting terms, what's depreciation? How do you get depreciation? I'm not going to get into the details of how those are made. Like, I'm not going to tell you how you get depreciation or how you get accounts receivable at this point in the class. Just like I'm not going to tell you like what's inside a carburetor, how you make a tire, things like that, right? We're just looking from the big car perspective. Because what happens with this class is we're going to look from the big car perspective. We're going to look at how to build the financial statements. In other words, what goes where. And there's some very specific things about what accounts go where. And in some of the financial statements, like the balance sheet, you even have to put things in specific order. So this is where your book and the models in your book and your note cards for the exam are going to be very important, right? Now, what happens is that after we get through chapter 1, we're going to go to chapter 2, and we're going to do a little bit more work with the financial statements. And then the rest of the chapters in this class are going to be diving into the parts of the car or the parts of the financial statement. So we're going to be learning how to do the entries and stuff and see, what creates accounts receivable, what creates cash, what creates depreciation. And that's going to happen through the rest of the class, chapters 3 through 12. So that is kind of how the class works. And so I like to use that as a little bit of an analogy to let you know that that's kind of how we're going to be looking at things. You're going to be tempted to look deeper and get into the details, but we're not going to do that at this point. I might give you a little info here and there, but not much.